The battle you don't see is always greater than the one you do. And this is where most people lose themselves without ever understanding why. Every morning, you wake up and step into a world that looks calm on the outside. Your home, your job, your routine. But inside your mind and spirit, another fight is happening. It's the unseen battle that drains your energy, pulls at your peace, and shakes your confidence long before anything visible takes place. This keynote is about opening your eyes to what is really happening beneath the surface of your life. Because when you understand the invisible fight, you finally understand why you need the armor of God every single day. Some people think their struggle is with a person, a situation, or a problem they can point to. But the truth is deeper. You are fighting thoughts that rise out of nowhere, fears that don't make sense, doubts that whisper when you're trying to move forward, temptations that show up when you are weak, and confusion that clouds your steps. It's easy to blame the world, blame your circumstances, or even blame yourself. But the real fight is not against flesh and blood. It's against everything trying to pull you away from who you're meant to be. That is why the battle you can't see is more dangerous than the one you can. You can't punch anxiety. You can't outrun fear. You can't negotiate with insecurity. You must face it with the strength God gives you. Think about how many times you felt tired before your day even began. How many times you felt under attack without anyone doing anything to you. How often you felt pressure on your spirit, heaviness on your heart, or confusion in your thoughts. That is not coincidence. That is spiritual warfare, and if you don't recognize it, you will walk through life fighting the wrong enemy with the wrong weapons. You will try to fix internal battles with external solutions, and you will end up discouraged over and over again because nothing changes. The unseen battle needs spiritual armor, not emotional reactions. The enemy works quietly. He doesn't always show up with chaos. Sometimes he shows up as doubt. Sometimes he shows up as exhaustion. Sometimes he shows up as comparison, impatience, jealousy, loneliness, or fear. He studies your weaknesses, studies your patterns, studies your triggers, and then attacks you where you are most vulnerable. And the danger is this: if you don't know you're in a fight, you won't defend yourself, you won't prepare your mind, you won't guard your spirit, you won't pray with purpose, you won't put on the armor God has already given you. This unseen battle is why some people wake up already overwhelmed, why some people cry without understanding why some people feel heavy even when life is going well, why some people lose motivation for no reason, why some people feel spiritually drained by noon. This is the enemy's plan, to wear you down before you even get the chance to stand up. But once you recognize that this is not just stress, not just life, not just a rough season, once you understand that this is a spiritual battle, you begin to fight differently. You stop trying to solve everything in your own strength. You stop blaming yourself for feeling weak. You stop thinking you're broken. Instead, you begin to armor up. You begin to protect. Your God never sends you into a battle unprotected. And this truth is more powerful than most people realize. Every challenge you face, every storm you walk through, every attack that tries to break you, none of it catches God by surprise. Before the enemy even formed the weapon, God had already prepared your armor. Before the struggle appeared, the protection was already assigned to you. You are not walking into life empty-handed or exposed. You are stepping in equipped, covered, and supported by divine power that was designed specifically for your survival and victory. When you begin to understand that, something inside you shifts. You stop fearing the unknown and begin trusting the one who already knows everything ahead of you. So many people believe that life is happening to them randomly, that hardship comes without meaning, that battles rise up without purpose. But when you realize that God is intentional about everything, every season, every lesson, every challenge, your perspective changes. You begin to see that the armor of God is not a metaphor. It is a spiritual reality. It is God's way of reminding you that He would never allow you to walk into a battlefield without preparing you first. You may feel unready, but you are never uncovered. You may feel weak, but you are never alone. You may feel afraid, but you are never abandoned. The armor is already yours. You just have to choose to wear it. Every piece of the armor has a purpose, and none of it is accidental. God does not give you random spiritual equipment. He gives you what your soul needs to stand, endure, and overcome. When He gives you the belt of truth, it's because He knows lies will come against your identity. When He gives you the breastplate of righteousness, it's because He knows guilt and shame will try to attack your heart. When He gives you the shield of faith, it's because fiery darts of doubt, fear, and negativity will be launched at you constantly. When He gives you the shoes of peace, it's because chaos will try to throw you off balance. When He gives you the helmet of salvation, it's because the enemy will attempt to infiltrate your thoughts. And when He places the sword of the Spirit in your hand, it's because your voice, filled with God's word, is your most powerful offense. None of this is accidental. God equips you because He expects you to win. He prepares you because He created you for victory. He gives you armor because He knows the battle is real, but He also knows that His power in you is greater than anything coming against you. This is not the protection of a distant God. This is the careful preparation of a loving Father who understands the weight of your journey and gives you what you need before you even ask. Think about that for a moment. Every time you survived something that should have broken you, it wasn't luck. Every time you made it through a season you thought would crush you, it wasn't coincidence. Every time you stood back up after falling, it wasn't your own strength alone. That was the armor working. That was the protection you didn't even realize was covering you. That was God preparing you long before you recognized the battle. And this is the beauty of it. Even when you doubt yourself, God never doubts the strength He put inside you. Even when you feel unqualified, God is confident in the armor He wrapped around your spirit. Even when you feel overwhelmed, God knows you have more in you than you think. You are not fighting with your own limited power. You are fighting with divine equipment handcrafted for your victory. God does not send you into battle unprotected, because He never intended for you to fight alone. The armor works only when you wear it, and this is where many people miss the entire point of spiritual preparedness. God has already given you strength, protection, guidance, clarity, and spiritual weapons, but they only become active when you choose to put them on. The armor is not automatic. It is not passive. It does not wrap itself around you without your involvement. It requires intention, awareness, discipline, and faith. Too many people pray for protection while walking into the day spiritually uncovered, asking God to fight battles while leaving the tools He gave them untouched. The armor works, but it works when you decide to wear it. Think of how many times you felt anxious because you entered the day without truth holding you together. Think of the moments when guilt controlled your heart because you forgot to protect it with righteousness. Remember the days when every negative thought, every lie, every fear hit your mind like a storm because the helmet of salvation was lying unused. These moments weren't proof that your armor was weak. They were signs that you stepped into battle without putting it on. The armor is powerful, but it must be activated. And activation begins with choice. Some people admire the idea of spiritual discipline, but never practice it. They know about prayer but don't pray. They know the word but don't speak it. They know God offers peace but choose to carry every worry themselves. It's like having a shield and leaving it on the ground. You can't expect to block attacks if you're not lifting what God placed in your hands. Faith is not a decoration you hang on the wall. It is a shield you raise when life gets dark. Peace is not simply a concept. It is something you must step into every morning. Truth is not a phrase. It's a belt that keeps everything else from falling apart. The armor cannot protect you from a distance. It protects you when you wear it. There are people who think the spiritual battle is about trying harder, stressing more, or toughing things out alone. But winning begins with surrender, not struggle. It begins with saying, God, cover me today. Strengthen my mind. Guard my heart. Align my steps. When you consciously invite the armor into your day, something changes inside you. Your mind becomes sharper. Your spirit becomes steadier. Your decisions become clearer. You notice attacks sooner. You respond with wisdom instead of emotion. You walk with a calm that doesn't make sense to anyone watching. This is what happens when the armor is worn, not just talked about. Imagine a soldier walking into war aware of the danger, but refusing to put on their armor. It sounds foolish, yet spiritually this is what many people do every morning. Life is full of battles, internal, external, emotional, mental, spiritual. And walking into them unprepared doesn't make you strong, it makes you vulnerable. God never designed you to survive on willpower alone. He gave you armor so you wouldn't have to rely on your own limited strength. But you must make the choice daily. The enemy doesn't take breaks, and neither should your preparation. When you wear the armor, you stand differently. You speak differently. You react differently. You start recognizing when the enemy is trying to distract you, discourage you, divide you, or deceive you. You begin to see temptation coming from a distance instead of falling into the same patterns. You stop letting small things break you and start handling them with spiritual maturity. You become aware of your value, your purpose, and your mission. Wearing the armor changes not only how you fight, it changes how you live. The armor works. It has always worked. It will always work. But it becomes powerful only when you choose to put it on. And today, that choice is yours. Peace and clarity come when the mind is guarded. But too many people are losing battles, not because they are weak, but because their minds are unprotected. The enemy knows he cannot destroy your destiny, so he tries to destroy your focus. He knows he cannot block God's plan for your life, so he targets your thoughts, your emotions, your imagination, and your inner peace. When your mind is unguarded, everything feels heavier, darker, and more confusing than it truly is. But when your mind is covered by the armor of God, peace surrounds you like a shield. Clarity rises like light, and you begin to move through life with confidence instead of chaos. Think about how many times your mind has been overwhelmed by worries that never happened, fears that were exaggerated, or insecurities that weren't true. How many nights you lost sleep replaying conversations, imagining worst-case scenarios, or battling thoughts that drained your spirit. This is not just overthinking. This is spiritual warfare targeting your mind. The enemy knows that if he can trap your thoughts, he can control your direction. If he can disturb your peace, he can weaken your decisions. If he can plant fear, he can slow your progress. That's why God emphasizes guarding your mind, because the mind is the battlefield where the real war is fought. The helmet of salvation is not just a symbol, it is a necessity. It protects your thoughts from lies, your identity from confusion, and your faith from doubt. When you put it on, you remind yourself of who you are and whose you are. You remind yourself that you are saved, loved, chosen, forgiven, and protected. Without this reminder, the noise of the world becomes louder than the truth of God. But when your mind is covered, the lies of the enemy lose their voice. Suddenly, what terrified you yesterday becomes small today. What worried you last week no longer shakes you. What confused you is now clear, because a guarded mind allows truth to lead and fear to fall silent. A guarded mind is a peaceful mind, and a peaceful mind is a powerful mind. When you have peace, your decisions are sharper, your reactions are calmer, your spirit is steadier. You don't break down over small things, and you don't panic when life gets uncertain. Peace is not the absence of problems. Peace is the presence of God's protection over your thoughts. That is why the enemy tries so hard to steal it. He wants you distracted, discouraged, and disoriented. He wants your mind tired, confused, and full of doubt. If your mind is chaotic, your life will follow the same pattern. But when your mind is anchored in God, your entire world changes. Guarding your mind also means being selective about what you allow in. Not every opinion deserves space in your thoughts. Not every fear deserves a place in your spirit. Not every memory needs to be replayed. Not every problem deserves full control of your peace. When your mind is guarded, you learn to filter. You learn to recognize what aligns with God and what doesn't. You stop letting negativity live rent free in your head. You stop letting people's words define your worth. You stop agreeing with the enemy's voice and start agreeing with God's promises. And clarity, real clarity, comes when your mind is guarded long enough for God's voice to rise above the noise. Clarity is the result of peace. When your mind is still, steady, and protected, you hear God more clearly. You understand your purpose more deeply. You recognize distractions faster. You gain wisdom, insight, and direction. You begin to see what God is doing even when life doesn't make sense. You walk with focus instead of confusion. You move with purpose instead of panic. A guarded mind becomes a guided mind. The truth is simple. You cannot control every thought that enters your mind, but you can control which thoughts you allow to stay. You can choose peace. You can choose clarity. You can choose protection. And when you choose to guard your mind with God's armor, you step into every day stronger, calmer, wiser, and ready for any battle that comes your way. Faith is a shield, not decoration, and this truth is one of the most misunderstood concepts in spiritual life. Many people talk about faith, admire faith, even claim to have faith, but they never use it. They treat faith like an accessory, something nice to have but never something meant to protect them. Yet in God's design, faith is not ornamental. It is not passive. It is not symbolic. Faith is active weaponry. It is meant to block attacks, silence doubt, extinguish fear, and cover you when life tries to break you. Faith is a moving, breathing, living shield that must be lifted, not stored away. The enemy operates by throwing fiery darts, sudden discouragement, unexpected bad news, thoughts of insecurity, waves of fear, whispers of doubt, moments of frustration, and temptations that strike out of nowhere. These darts are meant to pierce your spirit, weaken your confidence, and make you question everything God has spoken over your life. But the shield of faith was created for this exact purpose. When you lift it, those darts lose their power. They hit the shield, not your heart. They hit resistance, not your identity. They burn out before reaching your spirit, but the shield only works when you raise it. A shield lying on the ground protects nobody. Faith becomes powerful when you stop looking at life through your emotions and start looking at it through God's promises. Emotions are temporary. Circumstances change constantly. Situations rise and fall. But faith stays grounded. Faith says, I don't see the answer yet, but I trust the one who will provide it. Faith says, the storm is real, but so is my God. Faith says, this season hurts, but it will not defeat me. Faith says, I am walking through fire, but I will not burn. When you hold faith like a shield, everything trying to break you must face God's truth before it reaches you. This is why some people collapse under pressure. They are fighting life with feelings instead of faith. Feelings are fragile. Feelings react. Feelings panic. Faith does not. Faith stands firm even when your heart is trembling. Faith moves forward even when your mind is uncertain. Faith trusts even when your circumstances scream the opposite. Faith doesn't deny reality, it declares God's authority over it. When you lift your shield of faith, you are not ignoring the battle. You are positioning yourself to win it. The shield also grows stronger every time you use it. Every time you trust God in a storm, your shield thickens. Every time you pray instead of worrying, your shield expands. Every time you refuse to quit, your shield becomes more solid. And the more you use it, the more natural it becomes to lift it the moment trouble approaches. What used to attack you successfully no longer gets through the moment you learn to raise your shield instinctively. Faith becomes your first reaction instead of your last resort. Another truth about faith is that it is not meant to stay still. In ancient warfare, shields were not just for defense, they were used for advancing. Soldiers locked shields together to push forward through the enemy's lines. Faith works the same way. When you use it, you don't just survive, you advance. You grow, you mature, you gain spiritual ground, you move into new levels of strength and confidence. Faith was never meant to keep you hiding. It was meant to help you overcome. But perhaps the most beautiful thing about the shield of faith is this: even when your faith feels small, it is still strong enough to protect you. God never demanded perfect faith. He honors sincere faith. A trembling hand lifting a small shield is still a shield lifted. A whisper of belief is still belief. God can work with that. He strengthens you as you stand. He enlarges your faith as you trust. He covers your weakness with His power. Faith is not decoration. Faith is not a slogan. Faith is not something to admire from afar. Faith is your shield, your protection, your defense, your confidence. And when you choose to lift it, nothing the enemy fires at you can penetrate the purpose God has placed on your life. Victory belongs to those who stand until the end, and this truth separates the people who merely hope for breakthrough from those who actually experience it. Many people start strong, pray strong, believe strong, yet they don't finish strong. They get discouraged halfway through the battle, overwhelmed by waiting, or worn down by resistance. But the ones who see victory are not always the strongest, the fastest, or the most talented. They are the ones who refuse to quit. They are the ones who keep standing even when everything inside them wants to sit down. They are the ones who hold their ground when the storm intensifies. They are the ones who trust God when nothing around them looks like the promise. Victory is not given to the most gifted. It is given to the most consistent. Standing is not a passive act. It is a spiritual stance. It means holding on when your emotions want to let go. It means praying when your mind is tired. It means believing when the results haven't shown up yet. It means waking up every day and choosing faith again, choosing peace again, choosing strength again, even when yesterday drained you. Standing is not about pretending everything is easy. It's about refusing to surrender your faith just because life became difficult. Every time you stand, heaven notices. Every time you stand, your spirit grows. Every time you stand, the enemy loses another piece of the grip he tried to have on your life. Some people give up because they think the delay means defeat. But delay and defeat are two very different things. God does some of His greatest work in the waiting. The waiting is where your character is shaped, where your faith is purified, where your perspective is sharpened, and where your spiritual strength deepens. The waiting is the place where God builds who you must become to carry the blessing He is preparing for you. If you quit in the waiting, you walk away from what was already on the way. Standing until the end means trusting that God is preparing something bigger than you can see. Standing also means resisting the lies that rise in the middle of the battle. That's when the enemy whispers that you're too weak, too flawed, too late, too far behind. He tries to make you believe that nothing will change, that God won't come through, that your prayers are too small to be heard. But when you stand, you silence those lies. When you stand, you declare that God's word is more reliable than your fear. When you stand, you demonstrate that your hope is anchored in something higher than the storm. The enemy's ultimate goal is not to destroy you. He can't do that. His goal is to make you surrender. But if you refuse to surrender, he loses. And this is where true victory reveals itself, not just in the moment God answers, but in the strength you developed while waiting. Victory is not only the blessing you receive, it's the person you become. When you stand through the struggle, you gain endurance. When you stand through the confusion, you gain wisdom. When you stand through the heartbreak, you gain compassion. When you stand through the fear, you gain courage. The victory inside you often comes before the victory around you. God works in you long before He works for you. But the greatest truth is this: you are not standing alone. God stands with those who stand for Him. Even when you feel tired, weak, or overwhelmed, God is holding you up. His strength fills the places where yours is running low. His peace covers the moments when anxiety tries to rise. His presence surrounds you when you feel outnumbered. And His power carries you when you feel like you have nothing left to give. Victory belongs to those who stand until the end, not because they are perfect, but because they are persistent. Not because they never fall, but because they never stay down. Not because the battle was easy, but because they trusted the one who promised to finish what He started. And when you stand, truly stand, you will watch God turn every struggle into strength, every setback into setup, and every battle into undeniable victory.